Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And for those folks who are watching us online, I am very clearly not Reverend Karen. However, I am here with Reverend Sarah Person, who will be our guest minister for this morning. But as you know, we are a people creating a beloved community here at the First Unitarian in New Bedford. We believe in practicing and promoting the UU values of justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity in our congregation. And those values always spring from the love at the center that guides us all. We're a people of purpose in this church. We work to make sure everyone feels welcome in this meeting house. And if what you hear today resonates with you, we hope you'll be... All right, English. We hope you'll consider becoming part of the way cool community of seekers and keepers of this long, long dream. First Unitarian New Bedford always recognizes the land we inhabit and enjoy sits on the unceded ancestral land of the Wampanoag. We give respect to the people of the First Light, their ancestors, and honor them in our church. And if you are new to us and you wish more information or to be contacted by the minister, there's a little blue card that you can sign and drop in the collection box. There will be coffee and lovely things to eat after the service. You can join us. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel if you'd like. And now we also ask that any phones that might be on or other electronic noisy devices in your pockets, switch them to what we like to call worship mode. And I know that Karen likes you to do a little calisthenics at the beginning, so rise if you are willing and able. And we'll stretch our arms out. Raise them to the heavens slowly, fingers up, stretching as far as they can possibly go. Pick up some of the energy from the sky and bring it down to our hearts. And gather everyone else in as you're doing so. Arms outstretched, and then down to the sides. Going easy and light on the calisthenics this morning. And Reverend Sarah will give us the chalice lighting for this morning.
Our chalice lighting is by Amaret Calloway. In memory of all the flames that didn't die in the midst of darkness, in spite of the darkness, we light this flame today. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. The book of John, chapter 1, verse 5. My opening words today are by Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. Please rise in body or in spirit, and let's sing our first hymn of the morning, hymn number 1 in the gray hymnal, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door.
Fortune never pry about these windows.
morning, everyone. I bring you greetings from your sister church in Middleborough, Massachusetts, and also in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Very glad to be here this morning. Thank you. And thank you, Reverend Karen, for inviting me. I'd like to turn to your order of service, and let's read the covenant together. We come together as a religious community, upholding freedom of conscience, right relationship, and the inherent worth of all people. We value our diversity and pledge to care for one another in the spirit of compassion, to speak and listen to each other with respect, and to promote justice and kindness in the world.
Can everyone see the hand? And if you can't, just pretend. I thought how appropriate we're talking about gratitude that I come across this story as a teacher. And on Friday, the little preschool children were walking amongst the high schoolers going on their letter hunt. And this one little kid locked in with me and looked at me and said, "Hold my hand." And I was like, "Buddy, like, I gotta go. Like, I have a meeting and I have lesson plannings to do." But he kept saying, hold my hand, hold my hand. And I said, how could I ever, like, tell a child I can't hold their hand? And then I thought about the story I had already chosen, and I thought, it's a sign. So in first grade, one of the teachers said, "You know what, children? We have a very busy week coming ahead. We had a full moon. We had that Halloween holiday. It was busy. So let's draw things that you're grateful for." And she thought, well, a lot of these children come from areas that maybe the thankfulness might not be flowing, but she figured, let's just do this fun project. So she gets a whole bunch of drawings. Some children drew turkeys. Some children drew bountiful pictures of happy rainbows and sunshines and flowers. And then this one little boy drew a hand. And so when all the children were analyzing it, one of the other children said, "Oh, it's the hand of God. He feeds everyone." And another little child said, "No, that's a firefighter's hand. They help people." And then another little girl, obviously, you know, the one who's always analyzing and doing more and going above and beyond, says, "Well, that's supposed to be all the hands that help," but the child didn't have enough time to finish the project, so he only drew one hand. So while the class was working, the teacher, Mrs. Klein, was like, "Oh, you know what, let me go check on my little boy, Douglas." And Douglas says to the teacher, "That's your hand." And she said, "My hand?" And she's like, "Why?" And he said, "For all those times when you hold my hand and we go to recess, or you take my hand when we're walking down the hall to the bathroom, or when you're just holding my hand and we're sitting in class together." And she thought, my gosh, it's those simple, small acts of gratitude that really count. So while we're all getting ready for this materialistic celebration coming up that offends certain people, remember the small acts of gratitude. So smile at someone, offer a hand. When you're waiting in traffic, maybe don't beep or whatever you're thinking to say. So now we're going to go and we're going to hold each other's hands as we go off to Sunday school and practice how great it is to be here together and learn. So yay, gratitude.
Now is the time of the morning when we are called to share something deeply personal, a joy, a sorrow, and I think if you would like to come forward and light a candle, you're welcome to, I think. Is that correct? Or if you want somebody else to light the candle, that would be fine. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Helena, and a good friend of Larry Jakewith's, and I have the sad news that he passed early this morning, and we're glad he's at peace at last. But you would know in the early days he was always taking care of getting the coffee hour ready, and was the longtime owner of Subtext downtown, and a very special and unusual person, and we'll miss him very much in this congregation.
Today I am happy because this is my first day of overcoming the sickness that it made my throat feel real bad. As you know, my voice doesn't sound as it usually does, so yeah, I'm happy for that.
And I'm happy that he doesn't have hockey this morning.
We also have a candle candle of joy for our members Kirk Whiting and his fiancée Kathleen, who are marrying this morning. As always, we light a candle for those who have a joy or a concern in their hearts which they are keeping close.
That was beautiful. Thank you. My reading is by the Reverend Kendall Gibbons. Just a short one, but if you ever get a chance to read things by Gibbons, I think you'll enjoy it. And it's from The Humanist is Asked to Define Worship. There is a moment when all things gather themselves toward intention, and we who are gathered and glad, light holds just before the note sounds in this pure space, overflowing with thanks. Spirit of the infinite, of the dark and day and warmth and chill and all the merciful seasons of life, we do give thanks for your boundless grace. This day beckons us to come to terms with storm and beauty. The early morning rose as simply and ineffably as hope itself. And we donned our layers of clothing to insulate ourselves, maybe from the world, maybe from the weather. Today, we gather here to pray for those among us who cannot escape the wild and the wind, or a dull and bitter heart. We pray as a people to do and to be, and to do what we can be, to be a source of warmth and light within and without. And I ask us to let our hearts open wide this morning to others as we wait for the winter to come. And may it always be so. Let us observe a moment of silence. May all be held in healing. May all be held in peace. And let us say, Amen. My reading this morning is from Transformation of Silence by Audre Lorde. I have come to believe over and over again that what is most important to me must be spoken, must be verbal and shared, even at the risk of having it bruised or misunderstood. I have come to believe that the speaking profits me beyond any other effect. And of course I am afraid, because the transformation of silence into language and action is an act of self-transformation, and that always seems fraught with danger. But my daughter, when I told her of my topic and our difficulty with it, said, "Tell them about how you're never really a whole person if you remain silent, because there's always that one little piece inside you that wants to be spoken out. And if you keep ignoring it, gets madder and madder and hotter and hotter. And if you keep ignoring it, and if you don't speak it out, one day it will just jump up and punch you in the mouth from the inside." Out of the mouths of babes. In the cause of silence, each of us draws the face of her own fear. Fear of contempt, of censure, of some judgment or recognition, of challenge, of annihilation. But most of all, I think, we fear the visibility without which we cannot truly live. To survive in the mouth of this dragon we call America, we have to learn this first and most vital lesson, that we were never meant to survive. Not as human beings, and neither were most of you here today, black or not. And that visibility which makes us most vulnerable is that which is also the source of our greatest strength. Because the machine will try to grind you into dust anyway, whether or not we speak. We can sit in our corners, mute forever, while our sisters and ourselves are wasted, while our children are distorted and destroyed, while our earth is poisoned. We can sit on our safe corners, mute as bottles, and we will still be no less afraid. It is necessary to teach by living and speaking those truths which we believe and know beyond understanding, because in this way alone can we survive, by taking part in a process of life that is creative and continuing, that is growth. And it is never without fear of visibility, of the harsh light of scrutiny, and perhaps judgment. Never without fear of pain, of death, but we have lived through all of those already in silence, except death. We can learn to work and speak when we are afraid, in the same way that we have learned to work and speak when we are tired. For we have been socialized to respect fear more than our own needs for language and definition. And while we wait in silence for that final luxury of fearlessness, the weight of that silence will choke us. The fact that we are here and I speak these words is an attempt to break that silence and bridge some of those differences between us. For it is not difference which immobilizes us, but silence. And there are so many silences to be broken. Here ends the reading. And now let's rise in body or in spirit and sing our second hymn of the day, number 357 in the gray hymnals, Bright Morning Stars. Now is the time in our service when we ask you for your kind donations toward the many good works of this church. Just wow. It's November, and the holidays are looming, and so are all the expectations about how we should be feeling at this time of year. Be joyous, be generous, be grateful. So, in keeping with this season, I thought that I'd take a look at this seasonal theme of gratitude and maybe about what might be motivating us to give it and to want to receive it and to expect to receive it. Almost 20 years ago, I volunteered for Gulf Coast relief work. It was a project in Pearlington, Mississippi. I was part of a team of 3 going down to work on home renovations. My companions were Chris, who was a master carpenter, and we were driving his mobile workshop, and Todd, who was a business executive. My reasons for doing this were complex. The lasting devastation from Hurricane Katrina was tremendous, and even a year and a half afterwards, when we were going down, the progress restoring all these communities had been grindingly slow. And as we know now, there were some improprieties in the way that the emergency funds were being used, and that contributed, I think, a lot to what happened. We joined an interfaith effort that had been recruiting help from all over the country. And as it happens, not too long before the trip, I had discovered one of the many secrets of my family, that my great-great-great-grandfather had enslaved men and women and children to work his plantation in Mississippi, nowhere near Pearlington, but kind of further north. His daughter, one of his 5 children, had left home for Texas after the Civil War and had never seen her father again. But my mother showed me a tremendous amount of work that my grandmother, her daughter, had done in kind of like 1937 to 1939. She and a cousin had gone doing genealogical research which meant getting into the car and driving around the country and looking up records in town halls in those days. So all of the results of their research were kind of laid out in front of me. I had their genealogical charts, a narrative, census data, and letters from one of the freed slaves to my great-grandmother. The woman who wrote this was her mammy, who was the only mother that she had ever had, because her own mother died when she was just under 3 years old. And the two of them kept up a correspondence. I had letters going to like 1914, even though I don't know if they ever saw each other again. I was still trying to take all of this in when we made this decision to go. We traveled nonstop for 27 hours. Our route took us through Hattiesburg, Mississippi, where there were mile after mile after mile of these FEMA trailers that were called crampers by the locals. They weren't full size, they were half size. Hours later, we reached our destination. It was Pearlington and neighboring Waveland, where Hurricane Katrina had made landfall a year and a half ago. What happened was the storm pushed the Pearl River upstream. And when the waters returned, there was a wave that was over 20 feet high that barreled down back toward the Gulf and just blew away entire towns. And it swept away people and animals and homes and trees and boats and roads and bridges and an entire way of life. All gone, all leveled. But it was a year and a half later, there was some progress. That week, we were volunteers from New Mexico, Washington State, Iowa, Indiana, Colorado, Minnesota, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. We were dairy farmers, electricians, ministers, social workers, marketing executives, carpenters, millionaires, cattle ranchers, homemakers, nurses, college students, high school students, and people who are in between jobs. We were all different faiths, all different races, and we were committed to leaving our ordinary lives behind us for an extraordinary week of hard labor and outreach. Chris, our master carpenter, was immediately given the title, "He Who Knows What He Is Doing," by the Methodist and Lutheran contingent from Ankeny, Iowa. So what we found, very quickly, even that first evening, was that we worked alongside residents, and they were telling us their stories. They were almost unbearably matter-of-fact as they talked about clinging to trees or watching their pets get carried away, or they placed their belongings on top of the beds upstairs because the beds floated, so they didn't lose all of their, valuables. Upstairs, the waters rose to the second and third floors of these houses. And there was nowhere to go. They couldn't get out. Sometimes they would apologize, and they would say it wasn't all that bad, as if they wanted to reassure us that they weren't going to make us too sad and that we would stay and help. So our most efficient division of labor was for me to do all the scut work, clearing the debris away from where we were working, and just listening to folks telling us what happened. And then Chris and Todd would do all the work inside the house, which was a good thing because apparently I was too slow and too much of a perfectionist, so. Our meals were substantial affairs. At the Community Baptist Church, the church ladies would loudly warn us, "You don't enter until you have washed those hands." So there were supplies from Presbyterian Disaster Relief, and all of the folks who could cook cooked. Each of the 3 meals that we had, we were well fueled for the whole day. And there was a Reverend Rawls who would offer thanks and a lively prayer at every meal. And you are doing God's work, he would tell us. And I would be thinking to myself that we were undoing God's work. But unfortunately, part of our labor, thank goodness we had he who knows what he is doing, Chris the carpenter, was undoing work that had been done before us by people who didn't actually know what they were doing. And also part of my labor was to undo the emotional upset done by the previous volunteers. So that's how this whole week went. After a few days, one of the managers came out to me and steered me toward a household run by a woman named Bretta, who was notoriously cranky and unappreciative, he said, and for whom volunteers were now unwilling to work. I went to meet her and found her living in that cramper with her grown daughter and 4 little children. Her niece had not been heard of since the storm. Now, 50 feet away from this cramper was a lovely unfinished home with 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths, a living dining area and full kitchen, and everything in boxes. The previous volunteers had installed wiring incorrectly, and they walked out after she was protesting about what they had done. So I sat down with her, and she kind of gazed at me warily. And I basically outlined options for her, what we could actually do, finish in the time that we had left that week for her. So she had her choices. And I realized that no one in all this time had asked her what she wanted. No one. Nor had she been able to give voice to her rage and her grief and her fears about the illnesses among the families that were stuck in these crampers for over a year. Instead, she was supposed to sit in the corner mute forever. So gradually she unbent, and she did tell me her story, and that she wanted her kitchen cabinetry installed and the appliances set near where they were going to be connected to plumbing and wiring and everything else. Then I went to lunch, and Mother Annie Oliver sang for us, "Precious Lord." And it was with such freedom and conviction that in that gigantic hall, all of us fell silent. And we were forcibly reminded of why we were there: to serve with humility and compassion. Thank you very much. Now, the last day of that week, we stayed long into the night to finish the work. Bretta and her children and the neighbors, black and white, trooped over from the trailer, and they were just grinning because the house was taking shape, and there were hugs all around until gigantic black clouds of mosquitoes chased us all out, back into where we were sleeping that night. The next morning, we left Pearlington behind, passing miles and miles of boats that are stranded on the ground by the roadway, far away from the water from which they'd been blown. And there were bare foundations of houses that were gone. All that were left sometimes were the railings, the steps and the railings up to the house. Occasionally there'd be a chimney there, but everything else was completely gone. I saw little evidence that our government was at work. The teams were all from faith-based organizations. The administration was funded by a foundation. The kitchen cabinets were donations. The huts and the portable showers and the sanitation units for volunteers were from the Methodists. They were miracle trailers. At the time I was there, $18 million was languishing in state coffers, and in a year and a half, only $37,000 had been released to people. This was statewide. This wasn't even just Pearlington and Wayland. The FEMA trailers were emitting formaldehyde, and that's why people were getting sick. The houses in Pearlington, by the government mandate, needed to be now 12 feet above the ground to avoid being flooded again, but there were people in wheelchairs and folks who couldn't walk that couldn't get into these houses. Refugees from all around Mississippi who had been transported to other parts of the country were returning to find out they were no longer eligible for assistance in repairing their lives, and they had been priced out of homes and apartments that had been built in their absence. When we returned from the Gulf, I was exhausted but on edge. My muscles ached for days in places I didn't even know I had muscles. But you can imagine, going through my head, what did all of this mean? Why had I gone? What was that? The goodness of my heart? What was I meant to do? Because I'm thinking anything that I did was just like a drop in a gigantic bucket. A gigantic bucket of all the things these people would be facing for years. And who was I there for? Was I there for them? Was I there to make myself feel good? Some lady bountiful bestowing her favors? Was I there to expiate the sins of my family? I kept on coming back to Bretta, that notoriously cranky woman who just wanted to be heard and heeded instead of being told to make do-gooders feel good about themselves. And I thought, there was no healing there. No matter what we did, there was no healing there. I'm sharing this with you today in part because of perspective on gratitude, but also because all the forces that created the aftermath to Katrina are present in our society today. Katrina was a disaster in part committed by nature and in part committed by what was at times shocking neglect and ignorance on the part of humans. That is oppression. It is a willful disconnect between people with power and people without, between those who have undergone great harm and those who have the power to make things right, but don't always. And that oppression rears its ugly head in many forms, as we know, frequently hard on the heels of overwhelming tragedy, but often in the face of chronic and institutionalized neglect. And what happens when we try to do something? At some point, all goodwill can be exhausted. We are overwhelmed. And there's a part of us that can allow evil to become the simple answer to unbearable and complex tasks. We have to draw the line somewhere, we say. We can't help everyone. We have to make do with what we've got. We have to move on, and we know where that goes. It's not really that bad. They're exaggerating. Fake news. So I want to ask you all, what is inside you that shouts, to heck with that? I'm using a milder term, but in my heart, you know what I mean. To heck with that mindset that only some are meant to survive in the mouth of the dragon. And I ask you, when you have been motivated to help somebody, just not expecting anything in return, just to help somebody, what was it in you? I mean, are you someone that was helped yourself at some point in your life? Or are you someone who was never helped and never accepted how wrong that was? Or are you part of a community, family, the church, neighborhood that lives into what it says? I am, we are, beholden to others. That's the rock on which we stand. We are beholden to others. It's a matter of principle with our faith, that we have to be faithful not only in our being, but in our doing, or we are not truly a people of faith. The more pithy version that we tell our kids is deeds, not creeds. And I still believe this with all my heart, but after that experience, I'm no longer so quick to diminish the enormity of that which we are in comparison to that which we do. And it's where the soul searching comes in. What are we? And what are we prepared to do, and why? My family history includes enslavers and the enslaved, Eastern European Jewish immigrants, prohibition smugglers, farmers in sod huts, and an 18th century minister who fell in love with his wife when he was 14. There's a lot more stories that I learned when my mom was willing to share them with me. And these stories are a part of me. They are a part of how I see the world. I bring this to the world, but always mindful that I'm also affected by the world, by what the world brings me. So I'm leaving you with the thought that if we are going to do good in the world, that we have to accept it's going to change us as much as we try to change the world. Our deeds aren't all about us, our whys and our wherefores. The true work of faith is to be transformed as well as transformative. You know, unless we're open to change and expect it, our work isn't holy. It's charity. If we only commit ourselves to the work and not commit ourselves to be changed, we're never going to get to the root causes of why all of this is going on. We're never going to get to the root causes of misfortune and never understand the role that we might play in the fortunes of others. If only some are meant to survive in the mouth of the dragon, it is long past time that that dragon went hungry. And I invite us to say it and to live it and to be it. Our closing hymn this morning may be one that you're not familiar with. It's called In These Hard Times, and it's by Linda Hirschhorn after Bertolt Brecht. We're going to sing it. We're going to sing it 5 times. You're welcome to harmonize, if you will. Randy has just a beautiful, beautiful arrangement for it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Go out into the world in peace and have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. And honor all beings. Amen and blessed be.